Welcome to Tactical Talk. This is Zain Khan. The Turkish and Russian relationship was going just fine until the Russian fighter jet was shot down by Turkish troops. The Turkish coup happened, and the dynamics of Turkish politics changed. Just recently, Erdogan and Putin had a meeting and they're planning to do some projects together. Today, to discuss the meeting of Erdogan and Putin, we have none other than Peter Lavelle. We'll also discuss briefly the Turkish coup. He's the host of CrossTalk. Welcome to our show, Peter Lavelle. This is Zain Khan. It's a pleasure to have you on Tactical Talk.
Wonderful to be back.
Peter Lavelle, looking at the positive history of Turkey-Russia relationship, what was the initial reaction of Russia when Turkey shot down their fighter jet?
Well, I remember that day very, very clearly, and I've lived here for 18 years in Moscow, and the relationship that Turkey and Russia had during the entire time I'd lived here had been overwhelmingly positive. And we have to remember that Turkey was a very important holiday destination for millions and millions of Russians, and there was quite a few Turkish-Russian families as a result. I've been there a number of times, and it was a really wonderful experience. And it was, when the plane was shot down, it was like a stab in the back. It was intentional, it was maniacal, and people here took it to heart. I mean, believe it or not, it's really hard to move Russians. Russians are very stoic people, but a lot of people took that very personally. And of course, President Putin reflected that attitude in reaction to the Turkish authorities. So it was a very bad moment. But I can tell you, with the warming up of relations, I don't think a grudge is being held. I think people are looking forward.
The military personnel who shot down the Russian fighter jet were arrested right after the failed coup attempt in Turkey. Who could be behind the Turkish coup attempt?
Well, I'm one of these people that follow me in my program on CrossTalk. I'm usually one of the guys who will be the first to point to Washington and them being involved and being their fault. But in this case, I don't see that. There is circumstantial evidence, maybe. Of course, over the last 3 or 4 years, Turkish-American relations had been cooling because of the war in Syria, because both countries have different agendas. So when the pilot was arrested for it, it seemed to me that was just kind of a broad stroke of this, for a term that, for lack of another, purge going on in the military and other areas of society. So I think it was maybe kind of convenient to do that. I don't think it really had anything to do to prove anything to the Russians. I think it was much more of a domestic affair of what's going on in Turkey now after the failed coup attempt. But I think if you want to find the origins of the coup attempt, it's going to be in Turkey, and we cannot dismiss the fact that it was probably Erdogan himself preempting a possible coup. We have to remember that there has been a long history of military involvement in Turkish politics, and that might come to an end now. Seriously, a whole tradition may come to an end. So it's really much more the origins inside of Turkey. But the way the United States acted, they acted very slowly. They weren't jumping to conclusions. I don't think they really understood what's going on, because any change of government that Washington doesn't have an eye on or can't control, and particularly since it's a NATO member, they're going to be a little bit worried. And there's a real rocky patch now that Turkey and the United States are going to go through for a while. Erdogan has a number of options ahead of him, and he's not shy about showing it.
Putin and Erdogan met a few days back, just not long ago. Russia and Turkey are planning new projects together. What are those projects?
Well, I mean, the biggest one that is getting a lot of attention, two sectors in the energy sector. We're going to have a Turk Stream, as it's called, may look like it's going to actually happen. The European Union is not very happy about that. But then, Erdogan thinks anymore. If there's any major shift going on, it's going to be turning away from Europe, not necessarily towards Russia. But we also have a lot of construction deals. There's a lot of bilateral construction deals between Russia and Turkey. The skyscrapers in Moscow, a lot of them were built by Turkish companies. A nuclear power plant that the Russians had planned to build. When there was the announcement about these deals, these are all deals that were already in the works. They had just been frozen. So there aren't really any new deals out there. It's just a continuation of what we had before relations took a sour turn. So this is very good. Tourism, that's very important for both sides. Turkish industry was decimated. That's how important the Russian tourists are to that country. So I think really what we got from that meeting is trying to get back to where we were before, minus the differences that both sides have regarding Syria.
Okay, Peter Lavelle, last question. How will these projects and better relationships of Russia and Turkey affect the region?
Well, that's a tricky question because we have to wait and see what real direction the Turkish president really wants to go. The trade deals are very, very important. Russia wants to be as much involved in the region as possible, but it's going to be looking very carefully in how stable the Turkish government is and what's going to be going on over the next months and years. Russia wants to have a good relationship, but that good relationship is tentative. Syria is really at the core of it. Russia wants that border closed. And if the border is closed, then we can have a very good relationship. But if there's no movement on that, it's going to be a tit for tat, tit for tat. And the Russians are going to have a leery eye because the last couple of years have been really difficult. Last 7-8 months have been super difficult. So what we want to see on this side of the border in Russia is more stability, and we want to see that war wound down in Syria, and that's going to be good for everyone. And Turkey is absolutely the key country to do that. Now, the Turkish president has a lot of cards up his sleeve right now. He can make a lot of people happy, or he can make a lot of people unhappy. And we'll see how he's going to use those cards. My sense is that he sees that the conflict in Syria has been a disaster for Turkey, just an unmitigated disaster for that country. And winding it down is going to be in his best interest. But there's a lot of forces, and I'm looking at Washington, that's going to be putting a lot of pressure on him. And the kind of relationship that Russia would like to have maybe will make the Turks question NATO membership. And now that's a big thing. That's a really big deal. And the Turks are going to be asking very openly, what do we get out of this deal? I mean, as a member of Turkey, we have NATO. We haven't gotten anything out of this from their perspective, and so the ball is going to be dropped in Washington's court, and we're going to see how they react. And we know that they're very jittery right now, and we're going to have to see how things play out in Turkey. The Russians, like I said, will go a step by step on how the relationship moves forward.
Thank you so much, Peter Lavelle, for being on Tactical Talk. It was a pleasure having you.
Always a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
This was the presenter of CrossTalk on RT News. We discussed briefly the Turkish coup and also the meeting of Erdogan and Putin just not long ago. Until the next episode of Tactical Talk, this is Zain Khan. Take care and goodbye.